you admire the lovely speakers at the front here, I will just talk to you about the Blockchain Center and our wonderful sponsors for this evening who is presenting this event. Just a notice of photography, we are doing a Facebook Live there. It's right at the front. If you want to take a photo, please photobomb at the front there, but other than that, please take a seat. Thank you so much. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we gathered, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and I pay my respects to the elders past, present, and future. So the Blockchain Center's mission is to accelerate the global adoption of blockchain technology. We do this through education, incubation, community events. Now the Melbourne office, the co-working is done by here for Stone & Chalk, which is our then partner. Thank you so much, Stone & Chalk. But all around the world, in China, Colombia, and also in Lithuania, they have co-working space. So one of their pillars are co-working. We have the weekly talk and trade for everybody in the ecosystem here who wants to talk about the current trends and new regulations and what's happening in the ecosystem. Next one is on the 19th of September. We have Crypto Mondays, talking about Bitcoin, Ethereum, Monero, and mining. If you want to know more, please join our meetup and our Eventbrite page. Coming up are some of those events, but I haven't updated that, so apologies. We have Introduction to Blockchain, Introduction to Cryptocurrencies, Investing in ICOs, Launching ICOs, and Blockchain Developers Course. These are some of the startups that we work with and have worked through our incubator program, which is Block Engine, which is Melbourne's first blockchain incubator. And we also have the Blockchain Center VIP program. So for $50 per annum, we have memberships for events like last night. Who went to the launch party last night? Woo! Who enjoyed the launch party last night? Yes. Anything memorable happen? I'm not sure. I knew it was pretty hot last night. Exactly. And we are a not-for-profit, so we do thank all our sponsors for helping us be creating the community and the education that we have. So Blockchain Global, Digital X IBM, and our main sponsor who is presenting tonight, and I will now pass on shortly, Huobi Australia. Firstly, I'm Karen Cohen, I'm the Events and Incubation Manager here. If you do want to know more about the Blockchain Center, please talk to us afterwards. Other than that, please, round of applause for the CEO of Huobi Australia, Adrian Harrison.
Very much, John. I'm pleased that there's a lot of new faces here because I spoke last night and some of the content is a little bit repetitive, but it's still very relevant. Delighted to be sponsoring the Blockchain Centre and specifically tonight a very esteemed panel of blockchain leaders. So look forward to hearing from them. Let me just tell you a little bit about Huobi. We're one of the largest 3 crypto exchanges in the world. We've recently launched in the last couple of months in Australia. We've built out the team, the platform. We have world-leading technology and some of the best security in the world. So we are up and running. We've obviously, our timing hasn't been great in terms of market conditions, but we're getting the brand out there, the platform's in a very good operating rhythm, and we look forward to a bull market returning at some point in time. We're very committed to sponsoring the local crypto and blockchain communities, as evidenced by tonight, sponsoring this event, major sponsors of the Blockchain Centre. A couple of things that we are doing to build out our platform. Currently we have 10 fiat Australian dollar to token offerings. We're going to roll out that platform and connect it to the global liquidity pool where there's 300 trading pairs coin to coin. We're looking at OTC, etc. But one of the things we are looking to do is list more local Australian projects, so Australian dollar to Australian projects. So you would have seen, some of you would have seen a lot of noise on social media recently in our Telegram group and other groups, asking people and communities to say which of their tokens should be listed on our exchange. There's been lots of noise and banter, etc. And we've invited a number of those Australian projects to apply for listing. So we're going through that analysis and listing and due diligence process at the moment. That'll be overlaid out of headquarters with their process, and then hopefully in the next couple of weeks we'll have some positive news there and start to launch and support local exchanges. local blockchain projects. One of the good things that came out of that whole exercise, of course, was that our Telegram group, you're welcome to jump on there and have a look, has become a little bit of a community hub for a lot of the projects. So projects sharing ideas and communities sharing ideas, etc. So again, we like to be supportive of the community, and our Telegram group is one way of doing that. I'm going to switch topics very quickly onto something else that just sort of came up on Friday, and that was ASIC, the regulator, securities regulator, released their corporate strategy for 2018 to 2022. And basically reading through that, and it's very evident that the next 12 months, this sector, crypto, capital raising ICOs, exchanges, I've mentioned at least half a dozen times, and are going to be subject to further scrutiny, significant further scrutiny. We think that's a good thing. Additional regulation brings legitimacy to the space. It shakes out the sort of the big players. It's those with the strong infrastructure and strong compliance regimes like ourselves that will benefit out of that. But most importantly, who will benefit ultimately are the consumers or the investors in these sort of projects. So one of the things that was raised in there, that the sort of projects are going to have to be very conscious about where they're getting their legal advice from very substantial legal firms rather than just legal firms with one or two players. ASIC are going to be looking at that and making a judgment as to the veracity of that advice that's been given. And then likewise, exchanges like ourselves are going to be looking at that sort of the advice that has been given, because we know that will come under scrutiny from ASIC. So where I'm going with this is maybe that's something at some point in the panel may be addressed. 12 months ago versus now, and if you were doing it all over again, looking out 12 months, how with this new regime that's coming in, how you might approach that in a different way to what you did 12 months ago, if anything was different at all. Anyway, that's a bit of a question for the panel that may or may not be addressed at some point. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. Thank you for coming, and I'll hand over to Karen. Thank you.
So I'm Karen, I'm the General Manager of the Blockchain Centre, and can you hear me? You're all okay? Yeah, nodding? Okay. I guess I really wanted to thank everyone for coming. This was a bit of a vision because we know that this year's been a really tough year. We had David coming in from Perth, and I thought, we'll just jump on this wonderful opportunity to have him in town and ask this fantastic panel, which I'll introduce in a minute, to tell us a bit about the lessons that they've learned. If they raised money last year and they were lucky enough to be in the great run that we had, what are some of the things they will be telling us now, given this scenario that we've got at the moment? So I might start with just get each panel member to introduce themselves and their project, and tell us a little bit about the vision that they had when they created the project. So we'll start with you.
Thank you. I'm Dave Martin. I'm the Managing Director and one of the founders of Power Ledger. We're a distributed energy trading company, so we use blockchain to support the buying and selling of distributed renewable energy between peers, between consumers. So we did an ICO 27th of August, burnt indelibly into my mind, last year. We ran for 6 weeks, and we think it was really successful. It would really offer us and gave us a really good basis from which to launch our business on, and since that time, a year or so ago, we've been able to take the business from Australia to other parts of the world, and in that year since, we've had some chances or an opportunity to reflect on what happened during the ICO, what we would have done better, what we wouldn't have done had we had our time again, and those things that we definitely would have done differently. So look forward to sharing that with you.
I'm Nimo Namani. I'm the founder of Horizon State, based here. We did an ICO October last year, and since then it's been a whirlwind, really. Just the nature of what we do, which is involved in decision making and community empowerment and mobilization. I mean, we normally talk to very large customers, which move really slow. So that has been a bit frustrating at times, a bit hilarious at times as well. There's quite a lot of lessons we learned throughout the ICO and the months after that, and also by mentoring a lot of other companies that are doing ICOs between these three founders. So yeah, I got quite a lot of war stories to say.
Hi, Ron. My name's Lucy Lynn. I'm the founder of Forestland. I'm the only service provider here on the panel. I do blockchain marketing. I've worked on a couple of projects that each have raised $30 million US. So one of them is Havven, which I think a lot of you have heard of. I was the head of marketing there. And I've also worked on Blockchain Terminal. So they're a New York-based company and they've also raised $30 million US. So I'll be very happy to talk about what we did from a marketing perspective, and all the learnings there.
I'm Tim, the CEO of ShareRing. So we're developing a blockchain protocol, set of dApps, marketplace, and payment system for the sharing and the rental industry. So it's basically our approach for how we're doing this. We're building it like a normal startup, like a normal business. So we're not just about protocols and all of that. So this is my third startup. My history with the sharing economy goes back to I've run a car sharing company. We did car sharing for Toyota. I sold a caravan rental business, like the Airbnb for caravans, about 6 years ago. Ran an IoT businesses all the way back to 2002. So this is really the culmination of a lot of dreams and insights that we had into the sharing economy, and we're solving quite a lot of problems that are involved in sort of both the rental and the sharing industry. So looking forward to sharing some of our experience.
Hello, I'm Chris McCabe. I'm from the Loki project. The Loki project is a privacy-based project. If anyone here has heard of the Tor network before, we're pretty much trying to create a faster, better, more reliable Tor network, incentivized by a privacy currency. We launched earlier this year. We raised only about $9 million, no, $30 million. It's quite modest, and our goal is to pretty much give people back their privacy. It's pretty constant these days how people's privacy is sort of taken for granted, and they use the data, and we're looking to give that back to the people. So yeah, I'm happy to discuss some more stories, and yeah, go for it.
Hey guys, I'm JK, one of the founders of CanYa. So we kicked off, or probably about August last year, started this out in September. And looking back now, we all agree it was a hyper-localized, probably once in a generational event to go from, Bitcoin was in March, about $1,000 to finish the year up at 20 grand. And there was just a lot of new capital coming in, there was a lot of scams, a lot of nonsense that happened, and we all walked through that. And looking back now, the ICO market in Australia lasted a year. Hopefully it's not going to go anywhere. We're definitely in a crypto winter, and we definitely have to change strategies, change the way we think and do things. So definitely keen to share my perspective on the last 12 months, the next 12 months, and perhaps the next 2 years. As for the actual project, so it's CanYa. It's a decentralized service base for the world. The vision is that we're creating essentially a DAO, a decentralized autonomous organization, where everyone can participate in supporting the organization and there's no middleman. It's just you purchasing a service or a skill of someone else wherever in the world. And if you've been following, say, Coinbase and Brian Armstrong on Twitter, there's a large dialogue going around the fact that most people may never have the disposable income to speculate and invest in cryptocurrencies, and they are more likely to enter the cryptocurrency world by earning it, and that's what we're targeting, and not through, say, goods. So buying goods like eBay, we want to actually help people share their skills and services and allow people to experience the benefits of blockchain technology. It's a borderless, permissionless ecosystem. More importantly for me, and I believe very strongly, it is finally true programmable money. And that's what we want to get into, is the programmable money bit, where our machines can talk to machines. So talk to me more about that, the decentralized. I'm definitely an Austrian economist, so free market rules. I love the free market, and I'd love to share my perspective on that as well. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody. what an amazing panel we have here, and we're really blessed to have an hour of everybody's time this afternoon or evening. So I'm going to ask each of you again, what are the biggest challenges you've had to overcome in your project, and what's the biggest learnings for you so far? Dr. David.
I guess the biggest learning for us is that what we're trying, biggest challenge, we're trying to convince people who have been doing the same thing the same way for the last 100 years to do it slightly differently. So that's been our biggest challenge. The regulatory frameworks that we're trying to work through, the vested interests that already exist and have absolutely no interest in doing anything any different. And so the biggest learning in that space for us is probably around the persistence required to keep prosecuting that argument really strongly and really consistently. We don't set ourselves up as a disruptor. We're not promoting the death of the hegemony. We're not trying to cut anybody's lunch. We're trying to create a transition to a new distributed economy that preserves as much value as we can along the way. And the challenge has really been getting acceptance in a really conservative industry that the world has changed and we need to do things differently. And the biggest value we have in that space is persistence.
Persistence is key.
So I think our biggest challenge is that we're basically going to people and say, democracy is not bad, but the way you're doing it is wrong. And a lot of people, both, yourself on the street and community leaders, they're a bit opposed to that sometimes. We do find a lot of people who are very open to the idea, very open of letting people take more control or have more say in their lives, especially in Southeast Asia, which is where we're currently focusing. And for us, the main challenge is how do you take something that's huge, that has been in power for so long, and try to steer it a little bit, just to make life a little bit better for the entire population. So it's kind of mixed.
I guess from my perspective, I look at it more from a macro and industry perspective, and I think right now, during a crypto winter, it's quite difficult to get more people into this space. So I really see myself as an educator, and earlier this year, end of last year, there was huge runs. Everybody was so excited about crypto, and you go to any event. And I organised something in February for the Havven launch. I got 400 people to show up in Sydney. And I think now, be a lot more struggle to do that, and just to get more people interested in blockchain. It's not just about the price of crypto. For me, I want to get more people into this space. So I see that kind of as a challenge at the moment because we are in a bit of, this period. But, for me, I'm really grateful for things like the Blockchain Centre because, we're putting on more events and getting more people into this space as well. Doing.
I think one of the largest challenges that we've faced in terms of our sales approach to getting providers and rental companies to use our platform, when we were going out there initially talking to them, we were talking about blockchain, better security, self-sovereign ID and all of that. And when you're talking to a small scuba dive rental company on the Gold Coast, it scares them and they run away from it. So we completely changed our story and removed blockchain from the equation. And essentially just solved them a better service and solved problems for them that they were having in terms of, receiving fake ID from people or not having proof, like better provenance of the quality that they're renting out, the product they're renting out, things like that. And that completely turned the tables for us. We started signing up a lot more providers when we removed blockchain from the equation. So the world's ready for blockchain, but they're not ready for the blockchain story.
I guess one of our biggest challenges at Loki is, the perception people have of Loki. Once you start telling people about what Loki is, they get a lot of misconceptions, similar to when Bitcoin first started. People make a lot of, they have a lot of ideas of what it's about, and they just kind of hear what's happening with the media. So I guess our biggest issue, is people not really understanding what we're doing and coming to the wrong conclusions about the project.
Yeah, look, after Grow 10, there's a massive user experience problem. When we first launched our products in March, we had everything from decentralized databases to decentralized identity, and people just stopped. They just got to the point where they had to download Newport, and we lost them there. So we actually had to rip out a whole bunch of the decentralized stuff and put back in the Google Cloud stuff and the AWS stuff, which is painful. But now we're taking a step further and we're trying to really solve the user experience problem, which is something that Coinbase are definitely really good at. The other point is trying to find the right people to build a strong team that really understand the vision and understand what we're trying to do. Like for example, just trying to find a good blockchain developers, like trying to find a Sasquatch in a forest or a needle in a strawberry.
Is that why you asked to be introduced to our developers about an hour ago?
Yeah, but it's really hard. It's such an esoteric industry. I know for myself, it took probably 3 years to understand even how Bitcoin works, and that's the same for everyone. You don't really meet. There's no Bitcoin experts because there's no one that truly understands what's going on. We're just observing it, and the same with Ethereum. Like today, why wasn't MetaMask working? Like our devs, no one had any idea. So we're still so far away. My gut feeling is we're about 2 years away from the base layer protocols being usable. On something like ShareRing, come through with a 10 minute power solution and it works. Good luck, Tim. But yeah, probably about 2 years away from actually having proper infrastructure and technology that people can use. Like my Ether wallet just launched in 2 days ago, My Ether Wallet Connect. It's a mobile app that allows you to connect your private keys when you interface with My Ether wallet, which is actually a huge bit of infrastructure because it means people aren't going to get phished anymore and put their private keys on this dodgy website. So the infrastructure still definitely needs to be built, and for us, because we're building on top of the infrastructure, we kind of have to wait. And yeah, that's all the problems.
Thanks, guys. So this is for David and for Nemo next to me. What are your personal strengths, do you think, that have made you successful in this industry and got the vibes and resilience, as it said?
I'd like to think resilience and persistence, but it's probably just pig-headed stuff. I think it's been being able to rely on a really good team. So if the five founders of Power Ledger have just gone, it's us, we're the only ones who know what we're doing here. We'll tell you what to do, but we won't rely on your genius to kind of help grow the business. We wouldn't be where we are now. So we've got to, we've been able to empower a really clever and dedicated and motivated team. That's probably number one. And the other, I guess, is the linkages that we have within the industry that we're trying to support, to transform. So I come from an energy background, so being able to leverage relationships within that energy space are really useful. Being able to speak the language of the industry that you're trying to reform as well is really helpful, because you've got a level or an air of legitimacy, at least when you're talking to the CEO of a network company around why they need to change the things that they're doing. You can have a conversation. You can talk to them as peers, not as some rat bag who's just there trying to disrupt what they do and make their lives harder. So I think it's coming from an industry perspective, coming with a solution to a real problem, and then relying on being able to build a team that can carry the vision and grow the vision and really own the vision and drive the business forward. While you're off chasing things in far parts of the world, the business is being taken care of, is being fostered, and the idea is growing.
I think team and leadership is common to all businesses. It's good to hear that those are still just as important in this industry.
Yeah, I think from a personal perspective, there's two things. One is, of course, we've been in the industry for more than 20 years across various systems. But then there's patience. You need to have a lot of patience, both with customers and the team themselves. You need to understand that you have limits, even if you don't know them. That's the hard part. The limits that you know is one thing, but the limits that you don't yet know where they are, it's difficult, and you sometimes have to learn it on the go. So, you're faced with something, and then suddenly you're like, oh, I have no idea what I'm talking about, and you need to stop.
Or you just keep talking.
All right, learning to stop, that's a good one. Okay, so JP and Chris, this one's for you. What advice would you give to someone starting out in this market, in this ICO world?
Can I start this one off?
There you go.
I would say pick your advisors well, and make sure the advisors that you find will actually help you, and not sort of just someone who's paid there to do nothing. We want people who are going to really push you out into the world. Luckily enough, I had JP as one of our advisors, so yeah, it was really helpful having advisors that really push you through and open the doors for you. That's one thing that's really important.
Thanks, Chris. So you're going to throw me under the bus there. For me, I really encourage new aspirational founders to have a healthy amount of naivety and really world-changing ambition, because this industry is very hard, and the more you get into it, the more you realise you don't know and that nobody else knows, and that kind of scares you. So it's, yeah, you've got to have a sense of, I really want to get in with 2 feet and have a crack. The other thing is being able to both be able to measure and take risk, but then mitigate it very quickly. For example, just even in just the crypto market coming down from the all-time highs in January, like to be in the crypto industry means you're holding crypto assets, so you're taking on risk, you're storing private keys, you're throwing ledgers around the office kind of thing, but then you've got to be able to work out how you can mitigate against all that risk and move it away, so that's one less thing you need to worry about in running a company and fulfilling the vision of running a project. So it's being to have a very good understanding of risk and measuring against it. Very last thing, and that's the most important thing, is have an insatiable desire for knowledge, because there's every single day this thing changes, this industry changes, and every single day you've got to be learning and reading, and on Reddit and on Twitter, and and on Medium. Thanks.
Risk management and learnings, thank you. So this one is for Tim and for David. So you jump forward 2 years from now, how will you know that you're successful? It's like a job interview, isn't it?
Actually, we've got some pretty long-range forecasts and statistics to actually know when we've hit critical mass. So 2 years is actually pretty close to where we're actually forecasting to hit critical mass in 3 locations. So for us, we're a two-sided marketplace. So we have providers on one side and we have users on the other side. So there's no point having a lot of providers if you've got no users, and then there's no point having a lot of users if they go online and see no providers. So for us, what we expect in 2 years is we start to sort of get to that critical mass where you essentially start to have network growth of the platform, so we don't have to manage those numbers as much, and then we start to sort of see a little bit of runway growth there in at least 3 regions. So for us, it's Hong Kong, Australia, and the UK, and a little bit of Las Vegas that we're talking to at the moment. So we've actually got a 10-year growth plan.
I like those places. David?
I guess for us, from the crypto sense, we've been able to separate the link between our token and the rest of the crypto market. So we've got some real utility on the platform, which is driving the value of our token. But from a personal perspective, we're not anymore having conversations around things like clean coal. We're talking about needing to build new coal-fired power stations, because we've given the community the opportunity to confidently invest in distributed renewables in a way that changes the way we buy and sell energy in this country, and changes the carbon impact we have on the environment, and changes the economic impact of energy consumption for everyday Australians and everyday consumers.
Looking forward to my bills getting cheaper.
Me too.
Okay, so this one is about token economics, and I wanted to ask Nemo and Tim, the hard ones. How would you approach the token economics to get as much investment going forward and to safeguard against movements in the marketplace now, knowing what you know
now? For us, token economics is quite a big one. So we've got our utility token, which is share token. It's actually a true utility on the platform. So when providers actually use the platform in the marketplace, they pay transaction fees, and those transaction fees are converted to share token, and those share token go to validators, which are actually what our node holders are. So we actually create liquidity of that token, we create demand and scarcity of that token. We don't have inflation, which is sort of dropping more and more tokens just to pay those validators. So it's an intrinsic part of our system. It's the engine of our system. So without a good token model, the system would fall apart for us. We don't run on Ethereum or something like that, so it really is the utility of that token that actually helps grow the ecosystem and pay for those validators.
For us, we have a kind of
I don't know, sophisticated, I suppose, token mechanism where we know that our customers are not going to buy tokens on the market because I can't send a government or a political party or a global NGO to buy tokens on exchanges. So what we do is we, as a right state, we quote them a fiat price and then take that fiat that they pay us and use it on the exchanges to buy tokens. This also protects us from a lot of these people, a lot of these organizations. They pay after the service is provided. This is how they used to do stuff. Well, so if I had a token as part of the transaction going on, I couldn't have sold to these people. Once the tokens are bought on the exchange, then we take them. 5% go to charity, 5% go to public works, 8%, up to 8% are then being removed from circulation, and the rest we sell back to the market. The reason we do that is that we need to be able to protect our customers from fluctuations in the crypto market. If our token goes from its currently I think about $13 cents. If it goes to $13 and we quote people in tokens, that's very bad, obviously. So we need to find a way to shield customers from fluctuation in token price, and this is how we figured out a way to do it. In terms of anybody else looking for tokens, I think was your original question. I think it's very important to figure out whether you need a token at all or not. If you create a token just to have an ICO, this is probably a bad idea. Probably puts you in the 90%. So make sure that the token has a real, not even a utility, but has a real reason to live. Like for example, we believe that for us, because it protects customers from fluctuation, it's a real reason to live. If you can't find something like that, there are other ways to collect the money that you need.
Right, great advice, thank you. This is for Lucy. How did you go about building such a big community and following from a marketing perspective? What advice would you give for that?
Yeah, so all projects needs marketing, and I don't. There's a lot of tech people in this industry, and I don't know if they all understand that, but it's 100% something that is a requirement in this space. It's quite funny. It was quite interesting how you mentioned Loki's challenge is they don't know. They don't have the brand awareness out there. Not yet. And I think one of the things that's critical when you start a new project is you need to have a message that's really easily understood. That is your number one thing. Because you want to reach out to as many different audiences and types of audiences as possible. And they're all different types of audiences. You've got the VCs, the hedge funds, the investors, your community, your advocates, they all need different messages. So when I was working with Kane at Havven, the original tagline was distributed monetary system. And I looked at it and I went, what the hell does this mean? This doesn't make much sense, except for an economist like Kane, So you have to make it really easily understood and to have a really strong or compelling message that really reach out to the masses. And for me, like I look at what does the global audience really would prefer to hear, and we came up with a different tagline, decentralized payment network, which is still used because it's a lot more easier to understand for the general public. And you need to make sure that your messaging is incredibly understood from the beginning. So that's number one. Also, from there you need to create a really strong marketing plan. From knowing what your audience profiles are, knowing what industry is, knowing exactly who you're going to target, then you create different strategies, channels, and how, with a budget, how you're going to be spreading your communications and your messages out. And crypto and blockchain is a very global, ecosystem. It's not just Australia, it's not just, your specific country. You are looking to target everybody. And I've lived in 5 countries around the world. I was born in Taiwan, I was raised in Australia, I've lived in Japan, I've lived in the UK, and I'm a Canadian permanent resident. So I know what global audiences communicate differently, in different regions, and so you need to also tailor your communications differently as well. Additionally, I think what's really important is you need to constantly change, and because the crypto market is so fast. I mean, I've never been anywhere where I've had to work so hard or so quickly. And like, you know, a day feels like a week feels like a month feels like a year, really. Especially during ICO, which has been insane, like really difficult. And I don't think I slept for a good 3 months when I was head of marketing. But, you know, because you're constantly on all the different channels. And when I started at Havven, we had 60 people in our Telegram group. By the time I left, during our peak, we had about 127,000 people over 2 different groups. You know, we were highly successful in terms of building our audience and making sure, because we've got the tailored messages. Oh, mood lighting.
Jump up and down, taller people than me. Yeah. Should come back. Okay. It's a moving
last month as well.
No lights the next.
Oh, yeah.
Let's go back to South Bay.
Yeah. On to a dance.
All right. Thanks, Lucy.
Yeah, I was just saying that, you know, you just have to listen to your community, because, you know, it's much easier to engage with your existing audience as well once you've accumulated them than it is to acquire new ones. Like, existing audiences are always much cheaper than new acquisitions, so just make sure that you constantly communicate out to your existing audience and make sure that they feel special.
Can everyone just shine their mobile lights on us? So, our last question for the entire group, and then we'll open it up to the floor, because I can see everyone is dying to ask their own questions from this fantastic panel, is one piece of advice you would like to share with this audience. What's the burning piece that you would like to start with, David?
Something that I said earlier, your token needs to be related to what you're doing. You know, if it isn't, there are other ways, better ways, easier ways to raise money than to go through an ICO that you just can't justify. So make it relevant, make it real, and have it as an intrinsic part of your business model. And if it isn't, pick again.
Okay, thanks.
Also, I mean, you took my topic.
Thank you.
I guess one other thing is, you know, we all have blockchain ideas and we all have blockchain investments, I suppose, etc. But although apart from the token, think really hard whether what you're trying to achieve really needs a blockchain at all. I think a very, very large part of the projects I come across, you look at them and say, why do you need blockchain? It slows you down, it wastes resources, it's really not the kind of data structure that you need. And if you don't have a real use for it, regardless of token, then don't do it, or do it somewhere else. You don't have to go on blockchain just because it's the new thing. So yeah, just think hard.
It's not easy, no.
I don't know if there's anything to say actually.
Yeah, I think to just really think about your audience and who you're going to target, I think is a really important one. Like, if you've got a great idea, just make sure that you've got your right target in mind and make sure you're communicating properly to the right audiences. I think messaging and positioning is really key in terms of getting a message out there. And I think that's how you really differentiate against your competitors as well. So make sure you have that in place and just make sure you're unique. So that's something I would really focus on if you're a new project.
I think the best bit of advice I can give is don't be the sort of person that decides you want to do an ICO and then starts to try to think of the project that will fit an ICO. And I've given this advice to a lot of people that say, hey, I want to start my own business or raise funds or do something like that. I need to come up with an idea. Like someone the other day, hopefully they're not here, actually came up to me and said, I want to quit my job and start a business and be an entrepreneur. I said, great, what's the idea you've got? I said, I'm not sure yet. I'm going to come up with something and try to find a problem that I can solve. The thing with business ideas and things like that, they come to you and then you start sort of working them in your mind and you start building on them. You start sort of working out what the future of that business will look like. And only once you've sort of you know, you've played in your mind the future of this thing that you want to build is when you start looking at raising funds and building that business. Don't decide that you want to be an entrepreneur before you actually have the ideas.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Everyone's pretty much on the same page.
Get lots of feedback before you start your idea, before you quit your full-time job. I think feedback's really, really key because you have to make sure your audience is already established before you throw yourself in there.
Yeah, so I absolutely agree. I really wish people would stop for a few seconds and go, does this actually benefit anybody putting this on a blockchain? Or am I just trying to trick people who don't understand what blockchain is and try and push some sort of marketing campaign? So just really think about if you're going to create a project, does it actually need to be on a blockchain? Is it going to be beneficial? And then, get advice and go from there. But yeah, there's so many projects. We should just be thinking twice about what they're doing and, maybe not do it on blockchain. That's my bit of advice.
This probably goes for everyone, not just founders and team and everyone who's just trying to get into the technology. It's just learn and learn and learn because we're literally sitting on a square wave of disruption. And this disruption isn't just in marketplaces or energy, it is in economies, in government and payments and value transfer and capital flow. And it's starting to really make us ask the serious questions like, why do we need the United States dollar to be the global currency? Why aren't we on the gold standard? Why do we leverage? Why do we even need inflation? Why do we have this insatiable growth every single year? Where honestly, if you look at the laws of thermodynamics, we're going to end up boiling our oceans unless we start slowing down. And something like Bitcoin is actually going to help us do that. And we're on the cusp of something huge. And all fiat's going to go to zero. So hold Bitcoin. The Lightning Network will be the most decentralized, private, anonymous, and capable payment system that's ever been created. And there's no founder. Satoshi Nakamoto's completely anonymous. And his last words were, Gavin's got the reign on this and I'm off to do something else. He knew exactly what he was doing. And that is the next settlement currency of the world that's permissionless, accessible by anyone, that cannot be manipulated by anyone, is going to give us a new wave and a new appreciation of world peace and prosperity. So, bye Bitcoin.
Susan, we always going to start with you. Thank you. It's a fabulous audience and set of panelists. Based on your experience with your ICO and everything you know now, would you ever do an ICO again? And would you encourage others to do an ICO? And that question's for all the panelists.
So I'm trying to sort of get grey across the rest of my hair. So just for that, I would do another ICO. It depends on the market and what the best fundraising mechanism is at the time, based on the market. So if I had another business that we're starting and we're doing another capital raising, then I would look at what the best solution for that capital raising is at the time.
Definitely do another ICO. It's just a new way of accessible. And why do you need to be an accredited investor to be able to invest? And like I said, these questions that we need to ask ourselves. But I'd say the structure needs to be different. The raise needs to be proportional. It needs to be priced correctly. I actually think the EOS sale was one of the fairest ICOs out there. I know there's also EOS haters, but they never priced the token. They did the Dutch auction and it went for a year. Unfortunately, it was during the entire bull market and they raised $300 billion, 7% of Ether circulating supply. So good on them. EOS is going to be around for a long time. But just make it fair, make it equitable, tight to development milestones, even just put no end date to it and just tie it to your milestones so that you can prove to everyone that you can develop and build a community and open source it out. So do an ICO.
The wise ones say yes. Question for Jack.
So based on what you know now, what would you have done differently during your ICO process based on what the knowledge you have gained in the last 1 year probably? So for whoever can answer.
I would have, back to my previous point, just tight to development milestones. So start small and make it go for a year, 2 years, 5 years. But just keep it going and keep shipping, keep pushing out code. Because what happened was we're doing these 30-day sales. We did that as well. And it was just all this crazy attention on like the Telegram community size and building FOMO and hype and stuff like that. You don't need any of that stuff. Just make it slow, steady, and ship code. Because a lot of these projects out at the moment aren't doing that, and they may or may not survive the bull market. So I wish it's the market, the crypto winter, the bear market.
We would have developed more of our products before we did our ICO. I think that's very important. When we raised funds for my previous companies, we had a working product. We had stuff that we could demonstrate. We weren't seen as vaporware or anything like that. So if we were to do it again, we would have a working product. The utility would already be in the market and be used. And like JP said, we would have basically probably dropped the tokens as part of the utility and growing that amount.
Now we had a bit of a rushed ICO because we had external things that we needed to do. First of all, we want to rush your ICO, and yeah, definitely have a working product, which we sort of had, but obviously when you have a working product and then you're trying to sell utility tokens that the working product needs, then why do you need them? Right, so that's another thing you need to think about. Specifically for us, I think that the biggest thing I would do is marketing, and we haven't done enough. We hardly done anything really. So yeah, don't underestimate how much marketing is important.
Yeah, I agree. I would expect to have a lot more before we started, just in the run-up. But I think had we been aware of how influential the market would be on the success and the process of the ICO at the beginning, we would have invested more in being able to manage our community groups 24/7. As it was, there was probably a team of 10 of us working around the clock for 6 weeks to manage those communities in various platforms. We probably could have done a better job there, but it's a learning experience.
Glad to hear that. I'm glad someone values marketing. Very good. I think when we went through, as the first time, or my first time process, it was quite, you don't see all the scams that happen during our ICO. And I think, now I think I'll be a lot more vigilant, knowing that during our scam we had fakes of everything. We had fake websites, fake Telegram groups, fake news groups, fake emails, and everybody, I had about 50 people pretending to be me on our Telegram group because we had such a big audience, and we were a huge target. And I think, if I'll do something different now, I'll be hell of a lot more proactive in terms of shutting all that down, because during the time it was quite stressful when you see all these things, and so I'd be a lot more vigilant against the scams.
Yeah, going on the back of that, I would not do it in a year, I would do it in a month. I would get it done as quickly as possible, rip it off like a band-aid, hire some more people to help you whilst doing it because it's crazy. And exactly, because the scams kick in real hard. So you'll get all these people impersonating everyone in your team, emailing you, pretending to be people who work for you. Just get it done quickly, because once it's done, it all stops. The scammers stop targeting you. And most of them just leave you all, and all of a sudden, because they know the money stopped moving, and that's it goes quiet. You can continue with the project. So I see an ICO as sort of a hurdle that we got past, and now we can build the software that we are trying to build. So get it done quick.
One says quick, one says slow. All right, who would it?
Hi, the question will be for Loki. Why did you decide to do an ICO instead of joining one of the existing communities like Bitcoin or Monero?
So I guess we could have joined Monero, but they don't want to change anything. Monero is just trying to deliver a private currency, and they're doing it really well. We wanted to use that as our base, and we wanted to work off that. There's no way, if you've ever spoken to people in the Monero community, they're very against change, and so they should be. They've created a really good product, and you don't want to mess that up. So there's no way that we could have, they wouldn't have taken us on board. Luckily, we could take one of the top developers from Monero, and we could do our own thing. So yeah, I think it's a lot better that we can just do our own thing.
Other questions?
For the speakers that mentioned the importance of having actual utility for the token, I was wondering if you could just maybe give an example or two of what you think are useful models for token utility.
Sure. So our token provides 3 things: access to our software, access to a pool of Sparks tokens, which are the cryptographic token that allows for the transfer of the value of energy, as well as a prudential guarantee. So if you want to create a trading environment, you surrender and hold in escrow a volume of power tokens, we reduce the circulating supply of power tokens whilst increasing the demand for them. So we're driving their utility, so their economy is the basis of driving their utility, reducing the circulating demand, driving their economy. But for our platform, they're required to actually access the platform and provide that prudential guarantee to consumers.
For the most important quality for any token is store of value and SOV-like qualities, because they all do unit account. As in, you know, if someone owes you $100 or 100 units, you can prove it on the blockchain. But we're all trying to pursue a store of value quality. And most of these tokens have more, you know, they chase velocity and transactional velocity. And as you know, as velocity increases, then if you look at the global economy equation, MV equals PQ, then value will actually go down if you increase the velocity. So staking is really important. So for say Tim's token on the share token, you stake as a validator. For our token, you stake in the DAO and you get essentially ability to earn even more in an autonomous organization. But you have to really think about how can your token store, preserve value, and hopefully be more valuable tomorrow because of increased demand or increased line of stake. So really think about how you can use it to stake is important because it gives people permission to your ecosystem.
Hi, thank you all for being with us tonight and for your insights. I just have a question to all of you, and then if maybe Adrian can jump in with the military developments you were alluding to earlier. Were any of you approached either before or after your ICO by ASIC in having a discussion about whether it was a security or energy investment scheme at all?
Legal question.
No.
We, Dave will probably say the same, but we approached ASIC ourselves to get on the front foot, to really, because nobody had any idea what was going on, not even ASIC did. We also approached the ATO to really go, hey, we've done an ICO, don't really know what we just did, but you know, we need help to work through this together to figure out where it falls in the revenue, the capital raise, the accounting, GST. There's a lot of considerations that we're only just beginning to wade through. You know, I know for us and Dave's team just chatting to him, we certainly got on the front foot. And ASIC have come out with more and clear regulations. Honestly, Australia's not too bad place to do an ICO. It's quite measured. There's certainly not draconian like the United States or China, but it's certainly not like say Gibraltar or Malta. But it's healthy, and as long as you don't scam people. In fact, there is a story, I'm not sure how true it is, but in February, someone told me that ASIC had a draw of 37 ICOs, and 30 of them were labelled scam, and 7 were labelled not scam, and we were in the not scam pile.
I'll expand on my answer. So we made a decision to run our ICO out of our holding company in Malta. But what we did do is we got a lawyer in Australia, we got engaged a lawyer in Hong Kong, which is where we had an office, one in Vietnam and one in Malta. So we actually got opinions from all of them. The Australian lawyer has basically spoke to ASIC as part of the process. We also worked with Deloitte locally and in the UK to basically get an opinion in terms of how the ATO would see us and how we approach all of that. So, you know, when you run an ICO, you don't do it blindly. You get the right people involved to make sure you understand the legalities of doing it in the areas that you're doing it, and also where you're running your operations out of. So one of our concerns was if we're running our ICO in Malta, for example, where would our operations be considered to be? We had the majority of our staff in Vietnam, we had some in Hong Kong, some in the UK, some in the US, and a small number in Australia. So we needed an opinion on that as well, because ATO's got this thing called TaxNet, and TaxNet looks at where you operate from, not just where your company is based out of. So you know, it's very important to sort of go in advance, not wait for the knock on the door or the phone call.
Yeah, well, we did the same thing. So we had some really solid legal advice that looked at the Australian market, and we got some great comfort that what we were doing here was compliant with the existing securities legislation. And we took it on ourselves to do the right thing. So we put a measure of disclosure on ourselves that we probably over-disclosed, potentially. But we took the view that if we're in a market where people don't really understand the technology, they don't understand the legality of it, it's all very grey. The best thing you can do, or the worst thing you can do, is go and hide in a jurisdiction where the spotlight just can never find you. So we took the view, put the spotlight on ourselves, put that level of disclosure, put all of the disclaimers in the agreements, and try and kind of bring it on, really get on the front foot with the regulator and be as transparent as possible. Not just because we didn't want the regulator to come chasing us, but we wanted the people who participated in our ICO to have some comfort that we were looking after their interests and we're trying to do the right thing. I think of all the people on the panel, we probably get a very consistent view that for all of us, building some legitimacy into the industry is what's going to help grow the industry, and it's only through really good actors that we start to grow a body of support for what we're doing. The regulations don't become draconian like they are in some parts of the world, and we get to do the things we can do with as little guidance as we need.
Yeah, I think the thing we need to remember is that it's not only new for us, it's also new for RESTEC, it's new for the SEC, it's new for any financial market authorities all over the world. You'll get the ones like Gibraltar, like Mauritius, they front-footed themselves. But right now, even here, even a year after our ICOs, still your best course of action is just show up at this before you even go to an ICO. Say, hey, this is what I'm planning to do. What do you guys think about it? And they're very forthcoming. With us, it was very easy to work with them, and they were really keen, really interested.
My question is more related towards what platform you raised on. So for those who did an ERC20 token, what are some of the things that were good about that and bad about that? And for those who raised their own native platform or have their own blockchain, what was good and bad about that? And that question goes to the whole panel.
The good thing about the ERC20 key is exchanges integrated quite easily. Something like Loki, crypto coin, as you know, exchanges find that much harder to list. ERC20, it's known, the transaction, the wallet's supported easily, so you don't need to go and build your own wallet. It's like Tim will have to, and like you guys have to as well. So ERC20 is easy, you can get it done, but it also makes people question the longevity of your token because Ethereum is still an unknown quantity, and because we're building on top of a platform, and if that platform doesn't perform, then we'll have to move, and that's going to be hard.
Thanks for answering half of that for me. Loki, it's its own platform. When we did create it, there was a lot more challenges than someone would have from doing an ERC20 token. There's a few sort of delays and challenges that we got through, but yeah, it was real challenging.
We also raised on ERC20. I think one of the challenges with most of the ICOs raising on an ERC20 token, it's not what Ethereum was built for. It pumps the price up of Ethereum to over $1,000, and you've got a lot of ICOs that have basically been selling out, which dumps the price back down. So, people sort of are saying, Ethereum's at $200 and all this sort of stuff. Well, it's because there's not a lot of ICOs that are running and not a lot of money that's been raised and things like that at the moment. So what I would have liked to see would be more platforms where, that people actually ran ICOs on, not just on, 90+% of it on a single platform. I think to spread it out a lot more would probably been a much safer bet.
Yeah, we did it in ERC20 as well. The upside it's very easy. You went there were quite a lot of code acceptance of how to do it, the security breaches that were possible, that were known at the time, were very well documented. The downside is, I think you touched a bit about that, Ethereum is really not such a great blockchain. Sorry if I offend anybody, but when think about it, up until EF 1.8, I think, you could still have multiple nodes running on the same IP. Right, so you could do things with that, which are against what the blockchain is supposed to be, decentralization is supposed to be. And even now, with the trying to move away from proof of work, still it's not working as you'd like it to. And this has an impact on all the tokens that are over there. It's not like I have a better solution right now, but it's not the greatest experience.
Yeah, ours is in the RC20 token as well. Nothing really to add. The guys already said.
Hi. Firstly, thank you all for your time today. My question is for JP and David. So I've got two questions. The first one is, would you do a coin offering with an idea that is a white paper, or would you do it after your product is ready? And my second question is, how much percentage of your budget would you put on marketing?
More than we did. I'm going to answer to your second question. Yeah, I think there's something to be said for actually having a demonstrable product or a proof of concept or a proof of technology before you go to your ICO. It's easy to float an idea and write a really polished white paper and convince people of how clever you are, but to actually deploy a technology and demonstrate it works and demonstrate there's some consumer acceptance for it, just adds to the legitimacy of what you're doing. So I would always suggest do your proof of concept, get your demonstration projects in place, and then do the ICO. In terms of the budget though, I think, I couldn't tell you how much we actually spent. I can tell you we could have spent more, and probably should have, during that early process. But you kind of caught, you're doing an ICO to raise funds to be able to build your project. Sometimes you've got to go to the market and get funds through more traditional means beforehand in order to be able to satisfy that need for a marketing budget. But we could have spent twice as much as we did, and still maybe could have done more.
Just to add to that, if you launch today with our product, you have 95% security token with basic SEC, any financial market authority. So I mean, you might not care, you might want to sell a security token, but if you're thinking utility, you almost certainly have to have a working platform.
Yeah, I would say the progressive concurrent raise is probably the best, so that people, if they want to get in day one, they'll get the best tokens, but they'll have to wear the most risk. But it should be progressive and it should take years. Sorry, it should be ongoing as you build. That's what I feel like. And the second part is marketing. I mean, you saw projects like Polkadot, who raised something like 270 million or 270,000 ETH with not a single cent spent in marketing. And there's quite a few like Bancor and 10x back in the days. But they didn't spend anything in marketing. They just presented their idea. Maybe like Elf is another example of that. Republic Protocol as well. But I'd say like it's hard to get there these days, because if you think about it, all the people that got early in the Ethereum had huge liquidity. They didn't know what to do with it. The most likely 18 to 25-year-olds who got in with that first Reddit post with Vitalik. Then they vested in the DAO. The DAO failed. They got refunded. So then they had all this liquidity. Ethereum was about $10. It's climbing to $50 last year. They didn't know what to do with it. They bought a whole bunch of Lambos and yachts, whatever. And then the ICOs came and they thought, well, the DAO failed. Let me have another go. And that's why there was so much liquidity flowing around last year. And unfortunately, most of the retail investors came in on November, December, January. And yeah, just got absolutely burnt and wrecked, which is really unfortunate. Those guys do not sell just hodl. You'll be right, we'll be back again. 2020, just hold firm, don't wreck yourself. Yeah, just hold, because we've been through this before. If you look back at 2020, 2040, it's exactly the same, except Ethereum was around there. So just chill, we'll be right. Give it a few more years, wait for the next GFC. USD is going to implode.
If you have any dark moments, just give JP a call. He's here for it.
I feel encouraged, thanks. I just want to say thank you to this fantastic, amazing, wonderful... Thank you very much to Adrian and the Huobi Australia team for sponsoring this event. And we're going on a roadshow, guys, so just get ready. Thanks, everyone. I'm sure if you've got more burning questions, they'll be around for a few more minutes. Thanks.
Yeah, the real shitcoin is AUD.
As you admire the lovely speakers at the front here, I will just talk to you about the blockchain.